Pierce's death has stunned the community.
Right now, the community is in a state of shock. The hurt hadn't arrived yet. They're dismayed that something of this magnitude could happen, you know, and they're just walking around really not coherent of the situation, the magnitude of the situation.
Some residents are speculating that racism may have been a motive for this morning's fatal shooting. It was just a couple of months ago when two Tuscarora Indians took employees at the Robisonian newspaper office hostage to protest racism and corruption in the community. And while investigators are still trying to uncover the actual reason for Pierce's murder today, the issue of racism continues to be a major issue facing Robeson County.
I just would hope and pray that this killing resolution would come immediately before tempers begin to rise and before they become war.
Members of the Concerned Citizens Group will hold a special meeting Monday to try to figure out what to do now in light of Pierce's shocking and tragic death. In Robeson County, Joanne Sue, WECT News Center.
Those Pierce supporters want the special session to allow another candidate in a special judicial primary in Robeson County.
Anything I had to say about what we wanted to accomplish with the special session and everything, he listened to every word. He went back and forth. We had people with us that also commented, and I'm impressed with him.
Godwin, along with other Pierce supporters, spent nearly an hour and a half with the governor pressing their case for the special session. State law would have to be amended by the legislature to allow another minority candidate to run against District Attorney Joe Freeman Britt. Even though supporters are happy with Martin's response, the governor made no promises.
I told them that, as I've told several of you, that this is such an important question that I won't make a decision or lean in any direction until I've heard both sides.
Last week's shooting of Julian Pierce necessitated his supporters finding another minority candidate to take his place on a hoped-for new ticket. After meeting for 2 hours last night, those supporters did pick another area lawyer. Martin says now that he's talked with one side, he wants to discuss the matter with legislative leaders and candidate Britt. A regular short session of the legislature is scheduled to open on June 1st. Doug Johnson, WECT News Center.
Years ago,
Congressman Rose says the House Judiciary Subcommittee on Criminal Justice is trying to gather information simply by making itself available to the residents of Robeson County. But he adds that subcommittee members don't think a public hearing would be helpful now.
the kinds of things that people want to talk about are private things, that information that they want to turn over to law enforcement officers. But to be very candid with you, at this point, there hasn't been much information made available either to the governor's task force or to the subcommittee.
The subcommittee is looking into allegations of corruption, drug trafficking, and civil rights violations in Robeson County, charges which prompted this hostage-taking at the Robisonian newspaper office in February.
And I believe that we have and will always have racial tension in our country as long as we have people of different races. I mean, we always find things to fight about or to disagree with each other on. I think that because of three races of people living together in Robeson County, there has been and will always be some tension among races, just as there are.
Rose says it's uncertain just how long the federal investigation will take, perhaps several weeks. But let's get it over, let's get it behind us, he says, and let's get back to living calmly and trying to love our neighbors as best we can. Joanne Sue, WECT News Center. Bond had been denied twice for 30-year-old Eddie Hatcher and 19-year-old Timothy Jacobs. Their attorneys argued that the men are entitled to bail, that they were due a detention hearing immediately after being arrested, but failed to get one until a couple weeks later. The prosecution argued that the defendants and their attorneys didn't want the two men to be released right away for safety reasons, and that both sides had agreed to hold the detention hearing 2 weeks later.
We feel that the hearing went well, that we're going to win on this timeliness factor. We've got until next week to file our papers after the government files theirs on Friday. And I think if the judge follows the law, the government should be held to be out of time and they should be released on bond like any other pretrial detainee.
After listening to the arguments, Judge Terrence Boyle affirmed the magistrate's 2 previous rulings which denied bond for the defendants. He said the release of Hatcher and Jacobs may present danger to the community and the risk of enabling the men to flee the area. But the judge also asked both sides to submit their arguments concerning the timeliness issue of the detention hearing before he makes his ruling on that issue. In the meantime, Hatcher and Jacobs will be held here at the Craven County Jail until their case goes to trial. The date for that trial has not yet been set, but attorneys expect it to get underway possibly in June or July. In New Bern, Joanne Sue, WECT News Center.
It would have posed a conflict because there are issues that I want brought out in this trial, which would be in conflict with the Lumbee bill, which I do not come under.
Eddie said Friday you were fired.
Fired me Friday afternoon after lunch.
Is that just a ploy to get the trial continued, you think?
Well, he says that he's not going in the courtroom without constable, no matter who's with him. I feel good about the case. I feel good about what we're going to show, as far as the necessity defense, so I'm not afraid of that.
It's been exactly 6 months to the day since Indian hostage takers Eddie Hatcher and Timothy Jacobs held 20 employees at the Robertsonian News office at gunpoint. Hatcher and Jacobs had said that it was a last resort for them to bring forward the allegations of corruption in Robeson County. Today's continuance has brought mixed reactions to locals who have followed this story for 6 months.
I think they should carry on the charges and carry on, throw the book at them.
The lawyer's not able to be there and everything. He wouldn't get a fair trial without a lawyer.
This that took place was very wrong. That's not a way to prove a point by taking innocent people.
Because they're trying to take up for the people and let things be seen for what they really is.
I don't think that's fair to them, and I don't think it's fair really that they didn't give them more support than what they have.
Surprisingly, employees at the Robertsonian News office had no comment today, despite their personal connection with the story. Caroline Chang, WECT News Center, Lumberton.
You're not going to comment on the comfort not being able to be here? Checkmate.
How you feeling today?
Checkmate.
What does that
Feeling
mean?
good.
What does checkmate mean? Where's your attorney at? Think the chances are increased because you don't have an attorney, or what? How do you feel about it?
When you going to talk?
What are you smiling about?
The end of the day. Checkmate.
What do you feel about all this attention to the trial? How do you feel about that?
Yes, Timothy, how do you feel about having to wait when you had your attorneys here today?
Well, when I feel, to give us more time, I think customs going to play a major role in the trial, so I'm glad that they're going to give me a chance to be here.
Timmy, how does it feel?
Feels good. Feels good to be going home.
Who's surprised you now?
Again. Well, I'm getting married in April, so that's what's on my mind right now, and spending time with my mother and my family, so it's just good to be out. I mean, I'm lost for words, you might say.
20-year-old Timothy Jacobs was facing up to 25 years in prison on federal firearms charges. Tonight, he is a free man, although he says he expected a different verdict.
On the gun charges I was expecting them to find us guilty on that. But But then again, I think that they listened to just some things that went on before February the 1st and after February the 1st to put it together. There is something going on in Robeson County.
And the judge announced the jury's verdict. Timothy Jacobs not guilty on all charges. Cries of happiness erupted in the courtroom, while Jacobs breathed a sigh of relief. Then Judge Terrence Boyle read the jury's verdict on Eddie Hatcher. Again, not guilty on all charges. The courtroom went wild. One woman jumped up saying, "Praise Jesus." But no one was as thankful or happy as the defendants themselves.
It feels good to know people can realize what's going on.
What's next for you?
I don't know. How do you feel, Eddie? I feel great.
I couldn't be more pleased. I think we saved Timothy Jacobs' life and maybe Eddie Hatcher's too.
But this was not the verdict Assistant U.S. Attorney John Bruce wanted to see.
We're obviously disappointed in the result. However, I have never criticized publicly a jury decision or a court decision, and I don't intend to start now.
Although Hatcher was in a hurry to leave the federal courthouse, he stopped to hug one of the jurors who gave him his freedom. Another jury member refused to elaborate on why they voted the way they did, saying only they followed the law to the letter. In Raleigh, Valerie Calhoun, WECT News Center.
I can say that a lot of our employees feel that their rights have been thoroughly violated twice. First by Eddie Hatcher and Timmy Jacobs, and now by this federal jury.
It's good that they were exonerated, because I feel that they were standing up for what they felt was right, and I'm sure a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people don't, but
I'm glad they was free because it takes a lot off of the people in Robeson County. I live in the adjoining county, but I followed it very close. Therefore, it really pleased me to know that they was freed.
What are your feelings on the fact that Hatcher and Jacobs were exonerated of all charges?
that's terrible. I didn't know that they were exonerated of all charges. I don't think that they should have been, because it was very, what they did was awful. They shouldn't have held hostages, and that it was just a publicity scam.
Well, I don't think they was just trying to prove something, because a lot of Indian people's been done wrong here in Robeson County.
I don't think they had criminal intent when they went in there. I knew they probably weren't going to kill anybody, but I think they should have gotten some kind of light sentence of some kind.
It does raise a tremendous question in my mind as far as whether or not individuals now will be allowed to take hostages or to endanger lives of innocent people to protect their own lives. I just don't see the reasoning behind the decision.
It was very, very tense. Anytime there's a hostage situation, there's pro and cons, ups and downs. But the Lumberton Police Department did a fine job. I don't wish to discuss motives for this thing having happened. It's a tragedy anytime anyone has to get involved with something like this to address a problem. But will it accomplish anything? History will tell, sir. I can't say. We will have to find out in the weeks forthcoming, and then you can make your own judgment. Did the governor get in touch with the hostage? I don't wish to discuss any part of the negotiations. It's just not proper to discuss that at this time. Thank you.
Good job, Pete. Come on. Through negotiation by Reverend Locks and with the assistance of the SBI and the FBI. This is Charles Dunn from the Attorney General's office, and he'll make a comment on it.
Mr. Dunn, did anything come from Raleigh to help resolve this situation?
The governor and the people in Raleigh were in command post all day in close negotiations with the chief and the people here on the
the scene, and the governor's office did have communications with the people inside and did agree to look into the allegations that were made concerning law enforcement in the county.
Did the governor talk directly to them?
The governor did not talk directly to him.
Bring that, you white trash.
Eddie, you got any comment?
I'm gonna keep it up in court. I'm gonna fuck them up. They're gonna have a bad day. Every one of these motherfucking crooked sons of bitches.
He did. Yes, he did. No, he didn't. He said, let's go down and turn around. Go give me a break. So you go right here. Right here. Knock it off, Bill. The sheriff told us. Come on, knock it off. The sheriff told me. I was told. No, sir, I just talked to him. Let me go talk to him. Let's go.